As expected, Duke football head coach Manny Diaz has announced that Maalik Murphy will be the Blue Devils' starting quarterback going into the new season.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. So great to have you here with us on Wednesday, August 21st, 2024. Locked On Blue Devils, of course, is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on in the life of Duke athletics. We talk a lot about football and basketball, and today we got to break down the big news. Maalik Murphy is the starting quarterback for the Blue Devils going into this 2024 season. Who is he as a player? What can we expect? What does this mean in the big picture of Duke football as we've come to know it over the last few years? Our good pal Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast will join us on the program today. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review, and also make sure that you take the time to watch our show each and every day on YouTube as well. Like this video, share it with your friends, and most importantly, subscribe to our YouTube channel. That support means so much. We're on X at LO_Blue Devils, and I'm there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. I'd love for you to give me a follow over there. Without further ado, we are fired up to bring him on to today's program. It is Josh Cox, who's back with us once again. We now sit 9 days away from the first football game of Duke's season. We know the starting quarterback now. Josh, it's crazy. Here it is.
Yeah, I mean, the Maalik Murphy hype train started, at the end of last season. Then obviously through spring ball and now being named the starter this past week. Happy for him, obviously. Really looking forward to seeing his skill set. The Elon game will be a perfect one, I believe, to kind of get broken in a little bit and just kind of get his feet under him. Excited for Maalik, excited for Duke to see, where this era takes us, with Manny Diaz coming in and fresh, brand new offense and a brand new quarterback now.
Maalik Murphy, by way of Texas, quarterback to the Longhorns in 2 different starts last season for the injured Quinn Ewers. He won both of those starts. Texas, of course, goes on to the college football playoff, has a remarkable season, and they're expected to perform really well this year with Quinn Ewers back at quarterback, Arch Manning behind him, and Maalik Murphy winds up in the transfer portal and makes the decision to come to Duke. When that happened back in January at the end of the previous college football season, we all felt like this was inevitable, Josh, right? That sure, we're saying out there that it's a quarterback battle and a quarterback competition. But, I mean, if Duke fans and if this coaching staff thinks about it, was it really that much of a battle, or does it feel like this was going to be where they ended up all along?
Well, yeah, so if you remember, interestingly enough, the commitment actually came the day of the bowl game. That's happened right. The morning of the bowl game because they talked about the commitment because it was so awkward because Riley had transferred and was with the team that week, but then had left before the game. And it was like, that would really be cool if Maalik, committed before this game so that they're not talking about Riley Leonard the whole game,
right.
And so he committed that morning. So yeah, I will say this. I believe that I'm just speaking candidly here. Obviously he was well sought after. Oregon, Baylor, other schools were going after him in the portal. And so for Duke to land him was a big deal for Coach Diaz. And I think, maybe initially it was like, oh, yeah, he's going to come in as a starter. Well, he shows up to spring ball, and Grayson Loftus, who had led Duke to several ACC wins, had really come on as a true freshman, last season, should have won the Carolina game and all those things. All of a sudden Grayson Loftus is like, wait a minute, I'm competing for this job, and he did. And I would say this, JJ, coming to the end of spring ball, it was much more of a tight race for this QB1 than anyone probably thought it would be. And then, according to Coach Diaz, the last week, probably now, since he said that, probably the last 10 days is where you've seen Maalik separate himself and where Coach Diaz was comfortable to name him the starter. there is a side of it that's like, of course he's going to be the starter. But then the other side of it is, no, this is football. This is competition. I don't care who the highly touted, recruited transfer guy is. We're going to put whoever we feel like does the best job in this offense out there. And so I do think they've done that. But I think, if God forbid, man, knock on wood, but if something were to happen to Maalik or he just gets in a rut, I think Duke fans are every single Duke fan will be comfortable with Grayson Loftus leading this offense. And so what a great situation, really, to be in as a first-year head coach, to have two guys that you really trust running the offense. And that's not to mention Henry Beelan, who hadn't thrown a football since about November of last season and is now back throwing in practice. And he started famously the NC State game, where not many people knew this, but in the second half, his arm was already messed up, and they were football. They threw one pass attempt in the second half in that game, and Duke won 24-3. NC State fans, don't forget that. And anyway, so yeah, all that to say, man, looking forward to Maalik, but there's one really, really, really solid guy behind him and another guy who has already proven he can play in that third spot in the QB room.
What impresses you about Maalik Murphy, the person?
Yeah, so a couple of things. First of all, he has an incredible natural leadership ability, and he's the first one, man. Like, if he throws a bad pass, he's running to that receiver when he comes back to the huddle, and he's working it out with him, right? If there's something that happens, he's your first guy when a great play is made. He's the one jumping around. He's the one excited. So he leads in that way. But then he's just got he's got a great personality. Like, he loves dancing, bro. My man is dancing like all the time in practice. There's a little bit of that carefree, relaxing kind of vibe that he brings. I think that vibes very well with Manny Diaz. And so I like that about him as a person. And then, I mean, you've seen it on social media. He seems to be really, really tight with his wide receivers, Samir, Jomo, and the rest of the Javon, or the rest of the guys. And so that means something, man. That means something for these quarterbacks to have that relationship with the guys. I mean, we all know that Riley Leonard and Jordan Moore were best of friends. And so that helps with your on-field chemistry as well. So that's what I appreciate about Maalik the most, his leadership and his ability to connect.
Without a doubt. I mean, that's so impressive. And, it seems like such a simple thing, but I don't know that you necessarily see that every single day. You've been around this program a whole lot. I've heard other people talk about that as well. I personally was able to see just even small things at ACC kickoff, right? When you're picked to be one of the 5 players to represent the Blue Devils. And as the team's kind of wandering around and whatnot, you see Maalik Murphy kind of picking on Jalen Stinson, and he's letting him have it just as much. And you really forget the fact that it hasn't even been a full calendar year. In some respects, it hasn't even really been 6 months that they've been around one another, with people going away for summer break, all these various things. And you couldn't tell by the way that they interact with one another. And I know that goes for everybody else on that football team as well. And that's exactly what you're looking for in a quarterback. And if we're already kind of noticing that about Maalik Murphy, I think you've got to be really excited about what this year could be.
I agree with you, JJ. I think something that Duke fans have to be comfortable with, and probably those inside of the athletic department and those inside of the football program, is that, Duke lost a lot of leaders off of last year's team. And one of those leaders was that quarterback. It was Riley Leonard.
Yep.
He had his unique style of leading, and guys really connected with him. But here's the thing. You also lost a guy like Dwayne Carter. You lost a guy like Graham Barton, all these leaders. But, there's other guys on this team that are going to step up, Maalik being one of them, but other leaders on this team. And we have to let those leaders lead with their own personalities and the way that they lead. And it's going to look a little different. Listen, no one is going to lead a football team like Dwayne Carter led a football team. No one. And so it might be Wes Williams' turn to lead, or it might be, Michael Reese or, Ryan Smith on that D-line. They're not going to be Dwayne Carter, and we can't expect them to be. The same as is with quarterback. Riley Leonard was an incredible leader, and his team really rallied around him. But Maalik is a different type of a leader, and we've got to be cool with that. Like, he's got to be himself, and I think that letting guys be themselves, the best version of themselves, is important. And so, Duke fans get used to Maalik being a little bit different, but Maalik is very effective, even though he's different.
All right, let's talk. What can Maalik Murphy bring specifically to this Duke offense? How does it translate into wins for the Blue Devils in 2024? We'll answer that question after our first time out. All right, Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is the absolute best when you're looking for tickets from anywhere. Also here today, we want to tell you that Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different tickets. Game Time Picks is a way to make things just so much easier to save more up front. Remember, with Game Time, we love the panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. It's the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Another sponsor for Locked On Blue Devils is FanDuel, and we're talking about places to cash in and make big bets. You know that we got to talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Got something a little bit different for you now. Through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. It's the first 3 weeks of the season. And with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. You can cancel anytime. So go ahead and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. We go forward on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. JJ Jackson joined today by Josh Cox of Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast. Tell us a little bit about the podcast, Josh.
There we go. So we just recorded our first 2 episodes of the season. The last 2 weeks. This will go every week now. We record and release them on Tuesdays, unless there's a holiday there, but Tuesdays each week. And so we're giving you in-depth looks at Duke football and everything that goes on inside the program. And then also we've did a couple of behind-the-scenes videos this summer. One of them was with David Feely, which has been really awesome. He takes you inside the weight room. Brian, one of our co-hosts, takes you inside the weight room with Feely. Brian actually does a couple of different lifts with Feely, and they have a good time there. But you really get to see the best strength and conditioning coach in the country, we think. You get to see him in this element, and that was really cool. It's on our YouTube channel. And then just recently released another behind the scenes with the Duke football equipment staff. Wesley Pickle leads that crew, and really that was super cool. Like, that's something that you've seen videos in the weight room. You've seen Feely do the different things with the guys in the weight room. You've never really seen what goes on in that equipment room and how they get the guys prepared and ready. It's really neat. Brian got to put together a helmet, a real helmet, and do the decal work on it and stuff. And it was just super cool. So check those out. That's on our YouTube channel, Duke Football Talk Section 17 podcast. You can find it on YouTube and subscribe. That would be really, really cool. We're actually doing a giveaway, JJ, our stat prediction giveaway. And so at the end of the year, we'll give them a mini helmet, a T-shirt, and all that kind of stuff. But also, they're entered in to win 4 free tickets to the Elon game. So if someone's listening, maybe want to come to the Elon game, but you don't want to buy tickets, enter our stat prediction promotion there, and maybe awesome. You'll get them for free.
That's awesome. All right, so Josh, let's talk more about Maalik Murphy. He's the starting quarterback for the Blue Devils. From the offensive perspective, looking at Maalik Murphy, the player, what does he bring to the offense?
Yeah, so first of all, California kid, Inglewood, California kid. Obviously, you've already mentioned this by way of Texas. But what he brings, most notably, before he ever touches a football, what he brings is that frame with him. Depending on who you talk to, I say 6'5". I say he's between 240 and 250, depending on when he weighs. He's a big dude. If you were to put him, if you were to just have a group of football players, you didn't have him in a different color jersey, and he was just one of the guys, you would probably think he was a defensive end. He's massive. And so that's the first thing that you notice about Maalik. I mean, is that he's really big. Now, while with that being said, Maalik does not want to be a running quarterback. That's not really his part of his game. But I will say that, like, he's going to be able to fall forward for 2 or 3 yards after he gets hit. So I could see Duke in some short yardage situations utilizing Maalik running a little bit because, like I said, there's no way you're bringing that guy down and stopping him for a loss. It's just not going to happen. So he's huge, number one. Number two, and most notably skill-wise, that everyone's spoken about is his arm, the strength of his arm. He can throw the football. I don't even know, man. I don't know what his max throwing is, but I was at practice earlier this week, and he was throwing, 50, 60 yards in the air on a dime to people. So he's got that big arm. And, obviously, Duke quarterbacks in the past, there's been a lot of like, hey, I wish we threw the ball down the field more. And granted, that's not just on the quarterback. Like, right, the receivers have to be able to gain, to get a little bit of separation and got to win some 50-50 balls there. But let's put it this way. If we don't throw the ball deep this year, it won't be because the quarterback can't throw the deep ball. He can throw the deep ball. So that's what you're getting in Maalik. You're getting a physical specimen, a big guy that's got an absolute cannon of an arm.
Big time things coming for the Duke offense with Maalik Murphy under center, a lot of shotgun looks. Jonathan Brewer, the offensive coordinator, wants to get the ball out to playmakers often. They'll be able to run the ball as well, and I think Maalik Murphy's going to have a whole lot of control in that, working with the guys coming out of the backfield too. I mean, the flexibility, the diversity, different looks that you're going to be able to get from the Duke offense, not only in the passing game, but I think Maalik Murphy helps out the running game too. He might not be this crazy runner that you're thinking of right out of the gates, but when you're thinking about RPOs and various sets that Duke could run within their offense itself, you got to respect his legs at least, because you also know that there's going to be a good trio of running backs that Duke's going to be able to put out there too.
Yeah, you're right, JJ. Let me give you a scenario. It's 3rd down and 2, at midfield.
Yeah,
and
he runs it up.
He earns an RPO. I mean, he runs an RPO and he keeps that ball.
Yeah, good luck.
I mean, he's going to get the 2 yards. Barring somebody tripping him up on his legs, he's getting 2 yards. And so, I think you're exactly right. While he may not want to run and he may not have his number called a ton, the threat of the fact that he can just bully somebody for a couple of yards is always going to be there. And so I think you're right with that. I think something else to think about, you mentioned Coach Brewer bringing this SMU style offense under Rhett Lashley, bringing it into Duke. I know Coach Brewer's, goal is for Duke to be the fastest offense in the league. And so, quick to the ball, quick on getting play calls, quick through progressions. And that's something Maalik's going to have to work on. I mean, those quick progressions, getting to your 3rd progression, in a play, that's tough for anybody, especially in a hurry up, style offense. So that's something Maalik's going to have to get prepared for. But I also think one of the things that'll help Duke this year, it's going to help every team in a certain way, but the fact that they have mics inside of the quarterback's helmets this year. And so, Coach Brewer can be calling that play in his helmet instead of Maalik waiting for hand signals or waiting for signs or whatnot from the sideline. Certainly there's still going to be those signs for the other players. Sometimes maybe Maalik could get them set up in, say, the right set, but as far as actually what they're running might come from the sideline still. But anyway, it's going to be great. That audio cuts off at 15 seconds in their ear. And so, we were talking about that earlier this week, that there may be some defenses that at the 14-second mark, shift into something different.
Sure.
Because no longer, can the coordinator be in his ear. So anyway, I think those are things that are going to be interesting to watch across the sport in general. But I think especially for Duke wanting to run the up-tempo style, I think that's going to be interesting to see, how well that works between, offensive coordinator, Coach Brewer, and QB1. And then obviously on the defensive side, this is a defensive show. Same with the Mike linebacker, which I think, for Duke will be great. So
Maalik Murphy is your new starting quarterback for the Duke football team. Big time decision made by Manny Diaz as we take our final timeout today. let's refresh your memory on some of the recent starting quarterbacks to make their way through this Duke football program over the past few seasons. You're talking the likes of Riley Leonard or Gunnar Holmberg, Chase Bryce, the runs that he had. Who are those guys you think of, and where could Maalik Murphy possibly rank amongst that crew? That comes up in just a moment. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends at iBata. iBata is a great app that you need to be a part of your daily life. That's right. It lets you earn cash back every time that you shop. You can earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies and even toys. So make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average iBata user earns $256 per year. That's pretty awesome. You could save on over 2,400 brands and shop at over 1,000 retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and so much more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying and using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app today to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONCollege. The Ibotta app, that is IBOTTA, in the Google Play or App Store, and make sure that you use code LOCKEDONCollege. Ibotta is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, we're back. He is Josh Cox from the Section 17 podcast at Duke FB Talk on X, at Joshua Cox as well. I'm JJ Jackson. Maalik Murphy is the starting quarterback. For our kind of walk away here to close out the show, Josh, you look back in recent memory. I'm trying to think of like hype going into the season with some of the starting quarterbacks that we've had. I think it's got to be up there when you look at the quarterback position alone. I think it's fair to have been as hype about Riley Leonard as the fan base was last season going into the start of the season because of what he had done previously at Duke as the starter. But in recent memory, man, I mean, you've got to be tickled that this is going to be the quarterback for Duke starting the year.
For sure. I like your use of the word tickled there, for sure. Definitely a Southern word. But yes, I am tickled I would think the other two guys that I would compare this to, you mentioned Riley Leonard after that first season, for sure. All of it was warranted. And I think the only other one would be Daniel Jones in his third season. I think everybody knew he was going to be good. I don't know that anyone knew he was going to be as good as he really was.
Yeah.
And then ultimately leaving, to be drafted. But I think those are the two guys that are really looking in on the hype train. Now, there was some hype around some other guys. There was some hype around Gunnar Holmberg. I mean, the fan base wanted Gunnar. In fact, the year that Chase Bryce,
comes in from Clemson,
quarterbacked at Duke. And by the way, we love Chase, and we've actually buried the hatchet with him. Anyway, so he's a great guy. But people wanted Gunnar that year, and it didn't happen. And so I think there was some anticipation for Gunnar. But I think a lot of that, and this is nothing against Gunnar, once again, a personal friend. I love Gunnar. But there was not the physical hype. Gunnar's hype was more like emotional, like he was a local kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he played high school ball in Wake Forest. His mom was a public school teacher in Durham. There was all those connections, and I think people just emotionally wanted Gunnar to be that guy. Physically, there has not been hype like this. I mean, the truth is this, JJ. If he gets the accuracy and the decision making down, the sky is the limit.
Yeah.
The sky is the limit, because you add to that, and this is nothing against the offense that Coach Johns ran the last two seasons, but you add to the speed of the offense under Coach Brewer, he has a chance to really put up some gaudy numbers. And so it could happen. And now on the flip side, the offensive line is a question mark at Duke. I believe the offensive line is going to be better than what some of the national media thinks it's going to be. I think Coach Diaz is getting more and more comfortable with how the offensive line is going to look this season. But there is a world where he doesn't have time to throw. There is a world where he's running for his life, and that's not going to be good. But like I said, there's another world where he has time to throw, receivers get open, Brewer is on his game, calling quick, fast, no-huddle offense, and Maalik's able to put up some really gaudy numbers at quarterback for Duke. And so first four weeks of the season, non-conference, is a great time to kind of test that out and see what he can do.
We're telling you it's A-okay to be optimistic, to be excited about what Maalik Murphy is going to do for this Duke football team this season. Well, Josh, that is a close to our show here today. One more time, kind of promote your work and let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I work job-wise with the Durham Devils Club, which is the NIL collective for all Duke athletics except men's and women's basketball. So we work with a lot of different sports, but mainly football. And so that's really cool. And then Duke Football Talk Section 17 podcast was started back in 2020. So hit us up at Duke FB Talk on social media, like the podcast, wherever you listen to the podcast. Rate and review would be great, as you do for JJ, as you guys are growing this channel, both on YouTube as well as, on the audio platforms as well. And so we really appreciate it. The Duke podcast world is better off when we help each other out. And so we really, really appreciate it.
Well, we'll do this again soon, Josh, okay?
Sounds good, man. Have a great day.
All right, that's Josh Cox joining us on the program. Really exciting to have him stop by on the show today. Josh is back with us tomorrow as well, as we'll talk a little bit of basketball things with Josh when we come back again tomorrow. That does it for our show here today. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.